Bismillah Rahman Rahim 9700 paper 11 June 25 A-level biology. This is the second video, question 26 to question 40. Question number 26. Water potentials are measured inside a leaf cell in the air spaces of the leaf and in the atmosphere. Which values of water potential would allow water to move from the leaf to the atmosphere? So this is the leaf, and what would make water vapors move from the leaf to the atmosphere? So the only possibility is that it will move from a higher water potential to a lower water potential. So it will be from -1 to -7 to -100, because -1 would have a higher water potential than -7, and -7 would have a higher water potential than -100. That is why the answer is A. So water potential, you say, is -1. I always say 1 gram means 1 gram solute, 7 gram solute, 100 gram solute. So the more the solute means lesser the water potential. Water potential is more free water molecules. So if it's going to move from inside the leaf cell to the air space and then to the atmosphere, so it has to be from a less negative to a more negative to a more negative. Please understand this. Question number 27. Three samples of liquid were taken from different locations in the plant and tested to measure the concentration of four solutes. The results are shown. Sample 1, 652 sucrose, 0.14 nitrate, amino acid 41, and 3.4 magnesium ions. So basically the one which is, it says which samples have been taken from phloem sieve tube element. So that would have a lot of sucrose in it and a lot of amino acids in it. Now that is 1 and 3. They have a lot of sucrose and amino acids. So that is why the answer to this is, you see this 2 is showing 0.12 sucrose. That doesn't make sense. Phloem would have a lot of sucrose and amino acids. So that is why question number 27, the answer is C. Then question number 28, a healed band was wrapped around the stem of a plant. Sorry, a heated band was wrapped around the stem of a plant at a height of 1 meter above the ground and left for 10 minutes. A heated band. How will heating a small section of the stem to 60 degrees affect the transport of phloem sap and xylem sap between the root and leaves? You see, this is a stem, and these are the vascular bundles. They're all around on the periphery, right? The xylem is inside and the phloem is outside. So this is the phloem. Phloem is outside. When you attach a heated band around it, it's a sort of around a heated band around it, and 60 degrees, how will it affect the transport of phloem sap and xylem sap between the roots and the leaves? You see, the phloem will be destroyed. So this phloem will be destroyed because it's heating, so all the enzymes, proteins like co-transport proteins would be destroyed. So this would not be able to work. So the phloem is not going to work. Transport of phloem is going to be, so we could either choose between these two. But why would xylem be affected? Xylem is not going to be affected. There's no active transport. It's the evaporation process which actually promotes the capillarity action and the flow from the soil to the root, and then from the roots into up the stem and then out of the leaf. So that is why the question 28, the answer is C, because this would not be affected. The transport of the xylem sap would not be affected. Transport would not be stopped because transport will continue. Here it says transport stops. Yes, transport will stop in the phloem. Question number 29. The diagram shows the structure of an amphibian heart and the movement of blood through it. So from the body to the lung, from the lung to the body, which statement about differences between the amphibian heart and a human heart are correct? The hearts have a different number of ventricles. The hearts have a different number of atrioventricular valves. A septum is absent in the amphibian heart and a septum is present in the human heart. Now, as you can see, the hearts have a different number of ventricles. That's correct. That's fine. Yeah, that is right. This has only got one ventricle. The hearts have a number of different atrioventricular valves. Well, this is an atrioventricular valve and this is an atrioventricular valve. So, I mean, they're both the same. Then septum is absent in the amphibian heart. Yes, there's a septum here, which is missing. So 3 is correct as well. So C is the answer. 1 and 3 only. Question number 30. A mutation in one of the genes that codes for hemoglobin changes the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen. This mutation lowers the partial pressure of oxygen at which hemoglobin is 50% saturated. You can see how I've drawn that, how the graph changes from the red line to the black line. Which row shows the effect of the mutation on the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen and the change in the position of the oxygen dissociation curve for hemoglobin? So yes, it's going to shift to the left. You see, the red line was the original one, and then the black line is for the shift, shift to the left. And because it will have a higher affinity, so it doesn't give up its oxygen. So A is the answer. Question number 31. Which processes are responsible for the Bohr shift? Carbon dioxide reacts with hemoglobin to form carb-aminohemoglobin. Carbon dioxide reacts with water to form carbonic acid. Hemoglobinic acid is formed from the dissociation of carbonic acid. So in this case, you've got to understand is Bohr shift means when there's more carbon dioxide, then the hemoglobin affinity decreases and it shifts to the right, and of course the affinity decreases. So more of the oxygen is given up. So it has to be 2 and 3 because carbon dioxide forms carbonic acid, that's fine. And the hemoglobinic acid, you see HHB, which is formed, and that you see when HHB will only be formed when hemoglobin gives up its oxygen and then combines with. So hemoglobin also changes its friendship with oxygen and H ions. So it gives up the oxygen, and that's what happens. And when more CO2 is present, we want the hemoglobin to give up its oxygen so that we can delay anaerobic respiration. So that is why the question 31, the answer is C, 2 and 3 only. This doesn't make any effect. Then question number 32. A student viewed a drop of human blood with a microscope and described a cell as having a very large diameter and a U-shaped nucleus that occupies half the volume of the cell. Which type of cell was the student viewing? Monocyte. Then it says question number 33. How many times must an oxygen molecule pass through a cell surface membrane to get from the air in the alveolus to the hemoglobin in the red blood cell? Oh, this has come so many times. Assume there are no pores between the cells the oxygen molecules must pass through. So how many pass through a cell surface membrane? So the answer is 5. I've done this in many questions. You see, you have to understand alveolar wall is 1 cell thick. Then the capillary wall is 1 cell thick. And then inside this we've got the red blood cell. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But if it says phospholipid layers, then it will be 10. That's also been a question in one of the papers on that. And then it says question number 34. Asthma can affect children and adults. The air passages become narrower, severely restricting the flow of air into the lungs. Salbutamol is a drug that widens the air passages to relieve the symptoms of asthma. How does salbutamol relieve the symptoms of asthma? It says it's telling you that passages become narrower. How do arteries vasoconstrict? Muscles in the wall of the arteries. So the answer to 34 is D. It causes smooth muscles in the bronchi, relaxes the smooth muscles. So it's the muscles which relax. Nothing else can relax. Contract and relax. That's the word that we use for muscles. That's always what we use for muscles. So the answer is the others are all wrong. Decreases mucus secretions, rubbish, decreases the surface area of the alveoli. Nothing to do with that. It causes the recoil of elastic tissue. Well, that will of course narrow it if it causes recoil. That would be the stretch and recoil would of course, stretch would increase the diameter and recoil would in fact decrease the diameter. Question number 35. The photomicrograph shows the transverse section of part of the trachea, which represents the tissue that can contract and relax to adjust the diameter of the airways. It has to be nothing but D because that is the muscle. I mean, if somebody knows that, otherwise you're going to be saying this is all the muscle layer. Question number 36. Which statements about an infectious disease may be correct? It can be caused by a protoctist. It can be transmitted by an insect vector. It can be transmitted from mother to child. The answer is A, 1, 2, 3. Infectious disease may be correct. Yes, malaria. Insect transfer mother to child. So 1, 2, 3 is correct. Then question number 37. Which statement explains why cholera has not been eradicated by vaccination? There is limited availability of an affordable vaccine. Protection takes several weeks to develop after vaccination. The underreporting of cholera in the community and immunity to cholera decreases after 2 years. So all of these are correct. So that is why the answer is A. Because yes, there's not the vaccine. In fact, is very ineffective. So all these four are correct. Now, question number 38. Antibiotic resistance is a serious threat to global health. Which statement describes a step that can be taken to reduce the impact of antibiotic resistance? Antibiotic resistance means that you take antibiotics and you leave them, and then your bacteria become resistant to it. So new antibiotics have to be discovered, or they have to be synthesized chemically, artificially. So A is antibiotics prescribed by a doctor should be shared with family members. No, it should never be done because the family member might be suffering from some other, maybe a viral infection. Why are you giving them antibiotics? So A is wrong. Antibiotics should only be used to treat infections caused by viruses. No, antibiotics do not work on viruses. Farmers should give antibiotics to healthy animals to prevent and why? Wrong. So the answer is D. Yes, vaccination programs should be used to reduce the spread of bacterial diseases so that there's less bacterial diseases, less use of antibiotics. Then question number 39. Tetanus is an infectious disease caused by a type of bacterium. The bacterium produces a protein that is a toxin which causes illness. Scientists have produced a vaccine for tetanus which contains a harmless form of the toxin called a toxoid. The toxoid is produced by mixing the toxin with the chemical formaldehyde. The chemical binds to the toxin, making it harmless. Which statement about the tetanus vaccine is correct? After vaccination, the toxoid in the vaccine will be ingested by neutrophils and displayed in the cell surface membrane. The tetanus vaccine containing the toxoid does not contain antigen because it does not contain any cells of the pathogen. The toxoid protein in the vaccine stimulates the production of antibodies which remain in the blood to provide long-term immunity. When formaldehyde binds to the toxin, it causes the toxin to completely change shape. You see, what you have to understand is that tetanus, they're trying to make a vaccine. Vaccines mean you're trying to prevent people getting tetanus. So it has to be some sort of an antigen or something which stimulates the lymphocytes to be then selected, cloned, and differentiated. So the answer has to be A. After vaccination, the text of vaccine will be ingested by neutrophils and displayed in their cell surface membranes, so that then the lymphocytic stimulation takes place. The B cells and the memory cells develop, so that then the person will not develop the disease if he is exposed to this bacteria. Question number 40. What is an effect on the immune system of a reduced number of T helper cells? A decrease in the destruction of infected body cells by T helper cells, a decrease in the activation of B lymphocytes, an increase in the activation of T killer cells, an increase in the production of plasma cells. A reduced number of T helper cells. Well, it's not going to then activate the other ones. So it is going to be, the answer is going to be B. Why? Because a decrease in the activation of B lymphocytes. Because you see, the number of T helper cells, they release the chemical cytokines. And cytokines results in the activation of B lymphocytes and activation of the killer T cells. So that is the main focus. It's the main pivot on which the entire immune system works. So that's why the answer to 40 is B. Because if there are less T helper cells, means less cytokines, means less stimulation of the B lymphocytes. This completes this paper, and thank you very much for watching.